week is to continue that prayer. Why? Why did I ask you to pray last week? Why am I going to ask you to pray this week? The New York Times reported this morning that 2 days before the election, the U.S. had recorded 500,000 infections in 1 week. 784 infections reported on Friday. That's a backdrop, unfortunately, of some other things that are going on. And so this week, our lesson is entitled, Reasons to Pray. Reasons to Pray. Should be in your notes and your sermon notes. 1 Peter 5:6. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 6. Let me read in the New American Standard Version. Let me read several verses for you. And then I'll go back and read the King James, where we're going to be looking primarily. Therefore, humble yourselves, verse 6. I want you to find that. Be with me. Therefore, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you at the proper time, casting all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Familiar passage to some. Be sober. Be of sober spirit. Be on alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. But resist him firm in your faith, knowing that the same experiences of suffering are being accomplished by your brethren who are in the world. Verse 10. After you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself perfect, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. To be dominion forever. Peter ends by saying, Amen. The King James Version, verse 6. Humble yourselves, therefore, unto the Lord, that he may exalt you in due time. Verse 7 is where we're going to spend our time, where we will be spending our time. Casting all care upon him, for he cares for you. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may destroy. Actually, the word really means rip apart. So this morning we're going to look at three things. The substance of prayer, the method of prayer, and the reason for prayer. So why ask you to pray every single day last week for 15 minutes for those two things? Why? Reported that as many as 90 million people have voted early. Now think about that. In 2016, around 140 million people voted. Pre-election day right now, that number is exceeding 90,000. And what they're estimating is there could be 150 million people voting by Tuesday. While 1/3 of the country is in what the CDC calls a hot spot. Why? Ask you to pray. Europe in lockdown again. Britain, France, Germany, Belgium, Ireland. And the U.S. in casting ballots in the worst pandemic in 100 years. Well, I ask you to pray. Coming is election day, election night. Early and absentee votes, when to count them, maybe even not to count them. Litigation, lawsuits after Tuesday. Maybe to discard or even to maintain ballots, votes. If you put your ballot in a drop box, but you did it from your car. Reasons for prayer. Let's look at verse number 7. The text says, casting all your cares, King James, casting all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. Giving all your worries and your cares to God because he cares for you. Casting. People have been casting something all week. 90 million cast something. Melanie and I stood in line to vote, early voting on that first Monday. We stood in line for 8.5 hours to do one thing. That's cast our vote. We waited to cast. And so it's very interesting that Peter says casting. And I'm thinking, well, what's he talking? Casting. What does casting mean? Casting comes from two words. Upon, cast upon. It means to throw something. It's the idea of throwing something, casting it away from yourself. To cast. I often use this same word was used of people when Jesus rode into Jerusalem. They cast their clothes. It means take off and lay down. You gave it away. You completed that process. We stood in line, Phil got in the door, finally got to a booth and cast. In your Family Life Center on Tuesday, as one of the precincts in Rockdale County, people will come to do one thing, that's to cast. Once you cast it, that's nothing else you can do about it. And what he's saying here, the idea is, he'll get to what we're casting in just a moment, but we have to understand what cast means. Cast does not mean put it in with a string on it and pull it back. Trickery. Casting means once you put it in the location, that process has ended. Now, what is he asking us to throw, to cast? He's asking us to cast anxiety and worry. And you know what this word means? To draw in different directions. That's what you're going to cast. Once you cast it, it's gone. Before you cast it, you tugging on it. Unemployment among tens of millions of people. Our survey indicated that parents with children at home and trying to keep up with their schoolwork and conference calls and they're working remotely, or it's a combination of going to the office and working at home, and the husband is home or the single mom is by herself and she's trying to keep up with it. That's anxiety. It means to be tore or pulled in separate directions. Word also means to worry. That's what happens when you're pulled apart. It means circumstances are different or difficult. You find yourself being dominated by worry and anxiety. That is the thing that he's saying that we should cast. If you have not cast your vote, okay, cast your vote. You hadn't voted, vote. If you got to wait in line for 8.5 hours, vote. Do not proceed to Wednesday without casting something. This example is casting your, I wish I had a witness, casting your vote. Now there's a reason why this is important. Because if you don't cast that thing that's troubling you, it can start to dominate you. I wish I had somebody. Fear can have significant effects upon the believer. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Fear can cause you to be immobilized, afraid to move. Fear can bring you under bondage. Fear can. The unknown, uncertainty. Isaiah 51:12, I didn't put it in your notes. Yes, I am the one who comforts. Isaiah writing this. So why are you afraid of mere humans who wither like grass and disappear? Yet you have forgotten the Lord your Creator, the one who stretched out the sky like a canopy and laid upon the foundation of the earth. Will you remain in constant dread of human oppressors? Will you continue to fear the anger of your enemies? But we do fear, don't we? But there's a cure for fear. David wrote in Psalm 27, "The Lord is the light of my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the defense of my life. Whom shall I dread?" The Hebrew there means to fear. Verse 2, "When evildoers came upon me to devour my flesh, my adversaries and my enemies, they stumbled and fell." Though a host encamp around me, surround me, my heart will not fear. Though war arise against me, in spite of this, I shall be confident. Because fear and uncertainty can choke us, we should cast it upon the Lord. Why pray this week? Why pray last week for those two things? We exist in a physical world of which things are happening. Evil exists. Principalities and powers, we talked about that 3 weeks ago. Evil exists. Evil is real. Evil is all around us. Yeah. Yeah. And some evil may spike. In a few days. We don't know. We don't know. That's why Peter tells us in verse 8 the method of prayer. Now think about you spending your 15 minutes every day in prayer, and I would often ask Melanie, did you do your 15 minutes of prayer today? And she would say, yes, Eric, I did. And maybe there was one day that you almost forgot. Maybe it wasn't a priority last week. Maybe it was all you could do last week. Maybe it was Sister Betty Merriweather and Sister Betty Edwards. Maybe if it was at least those two prayed all day. We don't know. But with this we do know that was our commitment for last week. And we continue that this week for those two things. We're speaking 2 weeks ahead. You remember? Last week I said when we come back next week, we'll be 3 days out, 2 days out from the election. So when Peter wrote chapter 5, he said in verse number 8, be sober. Be sober. You must be sober. You got to be sober. Be sober. Be vigilant, King James. New Living, stay alert. Stay alert. Watch out for your great enemy. So this word sober, it means to be free of any mental or spiritual intoxication. Don't be intoxicated. The idea here is to be calm and collected, of self-control, well-balanced, clear head. If you're intoxicated, your head, your brain, the function of your brain, your central processing unit, CPU, David may have learned about that in technical school. Your CPU will be impaired. You've got to be clear-headed. No matter what's happening, no matter what will happen, you've got to have self-control. Are you tracking with me? It's written in the aorist tense, imperative, which means command. The mood is that of urgent action. Peter said, you must do this now to keep your head clear. You got to pray for a clear head. That's vigilant. 1 Thessalonians 5:6, the same word is used, same Greek word is used. So then let us not sleep as others do, but let us be alert and sober. Since we are of the day, let us be sober, having put on the breastplate of faith and love, and the helmet as a helmet, and the hope of salvation. Here it is, Paul. He's about at the end of his ministry, and he's writing to Timothy, young preacher. It's like that of urgency. And he says, but you be sober. What to do when things are going crazy. Be sober in all things. Be sober when it's good news and sober when it's bad news. Be sober when you think the end is near Be sober when you see that there is a path. And who knows where you might be in the next few days. Be sober in all things. Endure hardship. Endure it. It hurts, keep going. You get knocked down, get up. Yeah. Do the work of an evangelist, Timothy. Don't fold up. Fulfill your ministry. It's very interesting. Peter goes on in 1 Peter 1:13. I don't know if I put that in your notes or not. Therefore, gird your minds for action. 1 Peter 1:13. Therefore, do what? Gird your minds for what? Action. Your minds. Keep sober in spirit. Fix your hope completely on the grace to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Be sober. Gird your minds for action. In summary, sober, I want you to walk away with a couple of thoughts on this. It means proper exercise of mind, and that's what happens when you're sober, when you're clear-headed. It's a state of mind in which the individual is of self-control. Be in self-control. Neighbors, others, TV protest, one wears a mask, one doesn't. The polls say 3%, 2%, swing states, election night. One party's ahead. That party declares victory. Other votes come in because the absentee and the mail-in ballots have been put to the side, and those come in later. It's the process, and we count it later. 28 states cannot count votes on election day. Results are going to come in later. But just because they come in later doesn't mean that they aren't legitimate. So there is going to be moments that you must be sober, the state of mind in which the individual is in self-control. And you're able to see things without distortion. You boy. Because worry and fear have gone. I'm also give you one more. Be on alert. Be on alert. Yeah. Sergeant Davis is in part of the support team this morning, and Master Sergeant Chief Merriweather and Deacon Brown, we promoted him to sergeant. They've been on alert. Like some of our military people that we talked about this morning. An alert, this word, it comes from two words. Without plus sleep. The word literally means without sleep. It means sleeplessness, or to be awake, or to chase sleep away. Because if you're not on alert, things can come upon you quickly. It means to be in a constant state of readiness, vigilant, alertly watching, especially to avoid danger. Yeah. In secular Greek, the word was used to describe people carefully walking across a river with slippery stones on it. And if they did not pay close attention to their steps, they would end up in the water. So the idea of vigilance is to stay alert, because one moment when someone says something, one moment when something happens that doesn't account to your balance sheet, that you've got to be on alert. Yeah. You got to be on alert. Yeah. Why? There is a reason why. There's a reason why we should be on alert. So let's look at it. Lastly, the reason for this prayer, if you did not keep the commitment last week, there's a moment of grace. Moment of grace. But remember, this is an imperative command. This is military orders. I was talking with David Cannon, and young and excited. Praise God. And he was telling me that he's already received his orders. Piece of paper that says you will report to Tillis Air Force Base in Oklahoma on this date. That's a military order. There's no way David's going to miss that military order. Now, there might be people alongside of him, encouraging him, like mom and dad and a few other people, and, maybe some of you that now know about, an Air Force, a Navy man, Lieutenant Davis. We want to encourage them. So there might be people alongside you to encourage you. That's a good thing. But if there's no one there to encourage you, the command is still there. So that's the reason. Verse 8. An adversary. Not friendly, an adversary. The devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. New Living says, the devil, he prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to destroy. Now, John tells us in Revelation 12:10 that the devil is a slanderer. He's an accuser of the brethren. And he carries out this task day and night through people that create processes, and courts and judges and alike. Things that we can't see because the lion, he's prowling, he's lurking, he's not being seen. his coat blends into the landscape. It's hard to see him. But his task is to accuse. He accuses you and I before the throne of God. Yeah. In Ephesians 6:16, Paul says he's capable of shooting fiery missiles into our minds. These weapons. I was so blown away when I found out that little Olivia Davis, Lieutenant Olivia Davis, was the weapons officer on a real giant ship. Wow, that's crazy. She came, and this was last year, and she was sitting right over there, and she owns that. She owns the weapon system. I wish I had somebody. Satan owns the weapon system. There is R&D, research and development. He's got a research and development department that has an unlimited budget, and they're always thinking about different ways of munition, bombs and spy stuff. Weapons against us. Weapon of doubt. Despite the circumstances in this life, no matter what may happen, he's going to cause, his objective is to cause that missile is targeted, to call, and that missile right on it says, doubt God. Is it going to hit? David Cannon, Airman Cannon, the first guy we talked about, so he's avionics, electronics, all the stuff that flies the plane. Now, I don't know if that's the weapon systems, the targeting, using GPS, but it's very sophisticated. Satan has a sophisticated weapon system. Yeah. He wants us to doubt. He wants you to be filled with guilt. Yeah. Shame. When we see it and we do things, and he wants us to feel shame. He wants that mother to feel shameful. That husband, that father. Yeah, that's what he wants. This adversary. That word means against plus cause. The cause to be against. The word was first used for an opponent in a lawsuit. I have grounds to bring a suit against you. Cause against you. But it's without evidence. There's no legal foundation for you to come after me. But the adversary does. It's a hostile, repetitious event. An adversary is one that contends with, opposes, or resists. You see that today, don't you? Diabolos, used 37 times in the New American Standard Version. So it's critical for us right now, today, to understand what this devil can do. Now, you might see a kid dressed up in a devil outfit for Halloween. Was that last night? Yeah. I grew up, no real Bible study, really word taught. And Melanie and I grew up together. 14, I used to ride my bike up there. And well, she was 14. I guess I was 16, 15. But we didn't know. We'd go to the Halloween things. But I learned that was positioned as something fun, but really evil. Remember I said, Casper, the friendly ghost, you got to really understand. Pastor Favors will help you with that. But we came to know. And I love our parents, and I want them to know, because I know most of them don't know. They don't know that the adversary is work there. He's at work right there. He's there to divide. To divide husbands and wives and parents and children and churches and ministries. But you and I must resist. The adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion. Figure of speech there but the word lion is in the original text. It's used to describe a predator. This lion. A predator seeking to plunder or pillage. And he's inclined or intended to injure others for personal profit. The lion sees the deer. He's going to eat the deer for gain, for nutrient, for meat, for his profit. Vincent says that the word denotes a beast with fierce anger. Why does Peter say that? Because he uses the word later to devour. It means down to drink. To drink down. Literally means to drink down, so to swallow up completely. Yeah. Remember when you was little and they gave you that pill? I don't know what it was. Gave it to you and you just held it. You didn't swallow it. This is the swallow. It means to have something to pass through the mouth into the stomach. Figuratively. Meaning to cause great destruction. What's Peter's point? His point is that the lion doesn't want to paw and scratch its victims. The lion wants to chew them up and swallow them down. Can I say that again? We have a little dog, little Teddy, and everybody just rubs on him. He just puts his little paws up there on you, and you just rub him because he's so sweet. That is not what Peter's talking about here. The lion wants to destroy, completely destroy. He wants to destroy our systems of democracy. He wants to destroy the way in which we conduct our lives as citizens. He wants to destroy. That's what he wants to destroy. He's an adversary. He wants to destroy. This might be too strong, but we led up to this. He wants to destroy students. Some students aren't doing as well as other students. Yeah, they gave them a laptop, but they didn't give them a hotspot. They gave them a laptop with no bandwidth. Come on. We all want our children in school. Everybody does. Yeah. He wants to, not Paul, but he wants to destroy. So that's why you must pray this week. Are you with me? So this time next Sunday, things will be different than they are today. Can I get a witness? Come on, talk to me. There's 10 people in here. Next Sunday will be different than this Sunday. The circumstances of next Sunday will be different than the circumstances of this Sunday. The circumstances of infections, the circumstances of hospitalization, the circumstances of schools that go and have to shut down, every metric will be different. Now, we don't know what next Sunday might contain. We'll know. We don't know. But what we do know is that the text tells us to cast our cares, cast it. Put it in, you cast it, it's done. The anxiety, cast it out. And do not be intoxicated. Be vigilant. That's what you have to do this week. So as that music starts in the background, this week, make the commitment. You take camera one, Dennis. You take 15 minutes every day. Close shot. 15 minutes every day. Quiet time. If you're already praying, continue to pray. But don't let this be that prayer. This is on top. If you were not committed last week, you commit yourself this week. Pray for the health of our government. We're going to pray that the elections are safe, that the process is protected, and that if there is a change, that it will be orderly, as our Second Amendment, I think, prescribes. Orderly change, transition of power. That's what you're praying for this week. Amen. Let's see a show of hands of who's